Waiting for confirmation of that to come up. I can confirm that we are recording the meeting, so I'll now take the adherent for the Cambuslang and Rutherglen Area Committee of Tuesday the 14th of December 2021. Councillor Bradley, I see that you're here, as is Councillor Brogan, and Councillor Brown is also here. I have apologies from Councillor Calicus. Councillor Cowie, I see that you're here, as also is Councillor Fulton. I have apologies from Councillor LeBlond, and I see that Councillor Lennon is here. Could I check if Councillor Loudon is at the meeting? Okay. Councillor Nugent, I see that you're here. I have apologies from Councillor Walker, and I also see that Councillor Wark is at the meeting, and there are also a number of officers present at today's meeting. So with that, Chair, I'll hand back to you for the business of today's meeting.
Great, thanks, Pauline. Okay, item 1, declarations of interest. Do we have any? Margaret?
Hi, Carol. I'll declare an interest in agenda item 7, community grant applications. Application C, Bernhill Kids Play Scheme. I filled in the form.
That's fine. Thanks, Margaret. Okay, we'll move to item 2, minutes of the previous meeting.
Excuse me, Chair. Sorry.
Alistair.
Sorry, Alistair.
Not a declaration of interest. It's just I've had a message from Katie Loudon to say she's trying to join the meeting, but she's got some IT issues.
It's been one of the days, Alistair. I think everybody has had IT issues today. So
no problem. I just thought I'd bring it to your attention.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah. We'll get IT support onto that.
Great, thank you. Okay, do we have any questions or comments on the minutes of the previous meeting? Okay, I'll move them as the correct record then, please.
Second.
Thanks, John. Okay, item 3 on the agenda is potential use of derelict brownfield sites in the Strategic Housing Investment Programme, and Rosie Hart and Tony Finn will speak the report. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. As you say, myself and Tony are here just to speak on the report. I'm going to run through the items on the report, and Tony's available, myself and Tony are available for any questions. The report is issued by the Executive Director of Housing Technical Resources, jointly with the Executive Director of Community and Enterprise Resources in relation to brownfield, derelict brownfield sites in the Strategic Housing Plan, as you mentioned. We prepared the report just to provide an update on the status of the affordable housing programme in relation to sites at Cambuslang and Rutherglen. The position with the SHIP for the current SHIP for the years 2022 to 2027, and the ongoing work that's in place to develop the SHIP for 2023 to 2028. We have picked up on some recent developments that are ongoing through the planning system and ongoing work with our colleagues in the RSL partners. 3.2 of the report just kind of picks up on how sites are currently identified for development. Sites can be brought to the SHIP through ownership, sites that are currently in ownership of the council, sites that are identified and brought to us as potential development sites by registered social landlords, and sites that are identified by private developers that are subject to the council's affordable housing policy, and thereby we obtain, in some instances, if required, on-site provision. Section 4 of the report touches on how the SHIP is developed with partnership input from our colleagues in Planning Services Finance, along with our RSL partners. And it just highlights that the most recent SHIP has identified 82 sites across the South Lanarkshire area with the capacity to deliver 2,606 units across the area. Within section 5 of the report, we've provided details of how development within Cambuslang and Rutherglen has been shaped by planning strategies and policies, and delivering sites, how we've delivered sites, in particular in brownfield sites and on vacant land within the area. The section highlights the development of some of the larger regeneration projects that we've been involved in across Cambuslang and Rutherglen, specifically noting the ongoing regeneration at East Whittlebourne, the Newton CGA, the former Hoover site, and it also notes some sites that are ongoing, projects that are ongoing and being delivered by RSL partners. Section 6 of the report provides some information on the future considerations for the area and how the strategic and policy developments will have an impact on SHIP. It touches on the development of the SHIP again through the partnership working, how we're focusing on delivery of brownfield sites, changes that might have an influence through the development of the LDP, Local Development Plan 3, and obviously the impacts that the items relating to sustainability, meeting sustainability and climate change principles, how they will have to be incorporated into any developments going forward. We also touched on the issues in relation to reviews of settlement boundaries and policy designations for specific sites to ascertain whether they're suitable for housing development, for example, where sites are currently identified for other uses, how they're redesignated for housing development. We included an agenda to the report detailing the sites that have been completed up to 2021 across Cambuslang and Rutherglen, and in total since 2016-17 we have delivered, ourselves and RSLs have delivered 385 units in total in the area, including 125 units for particular and amenity needs. In Appendix 2 to the report, we have also picked up on development sites that are ongoing, sites that are ongoing or sites that are currently in discussion to be developed as part of the Strategic Housing Investment Plan. And we anticipate around 477 units being delivered across Cambuslang and Rutherglen area. As I say, some sites currently on site, and we've given an indication of anticipated site starts for remaining sites where site options are still being reviewed.
Thanks, Rosie. Okay, we'll open it up to questions. Martin?
Hiya. Yeah, I think by and large this looks really, really good. Really impressive. It's really encouraging to see a lot of these sites kind of being discussed. I've got a couple of questions actually. One of them is one of the sites is listed as Bouverie Street, and I'm not entirely sure if it's the one that I think it is. So Bouverie Street is basically there's a large vacant site directly across the road from the Aldi in Rutherglen. And Bouverie Street backs on to the block that vacant site's on. But basically there are buildings facing Bouverie Street, so I'm not entirely sure if it is. So basically, like, is that site the one that I think it is? Is it going to be that whole block, or is it only going to be part of it? I was hoping to get a wee bit more detail about that.
In terms of the submission that we've had, don't actually have it up in front of me at the moment, Councillor Lennon, but I could forward you on details of that site, just what's been proposed, or if you give me, sorry, apologies if you, I don't have my plans here. I think it's probably best that just forward you on the plan of the area, just to give you the outline, obviously.
Yeah, that would be brilliant. I think that would be really, really helpful. The other thing I was going to ask is, so there are a few. I'm really encouraged to see that, like, some of the sites that are under consideration are sites that are currently in private ownership, because I think that what's encouraging to me about that is that the council's looking not just at the lands that we currently happen to own and thinking about how we can make better use of that, but also kind of thinking about gap sites that exist that maybe ownership has moved out of the council for one reason or another. That said, I think there are a couple of sites that are like notable by omission on the list. So the two big ones that kind of jumped out to me are the site of the old Rutherglen swimming baths on kind of Greenhill Road, where Greenhill Road kind of meets Kirkwood Street. Now, I believe that's no longer in ownership of the council. Obviously, it was owned by the council when it was a swimming pool. Mm-hmm. But it was kind of, my understanding is it was sold off on for a token sum, and the private developer incurred the cost of getting rid of the asbestos. And in exchange, they got this land, and the plan was for kind of housing to be built there, for flats to be built. 25 years have passed. There are no houses there. So I'm quite surprised to see that that's not been included as consideration, because when I think about brownfield sites that could be made better use of, particularly for housing, that's one that's very often kind of a touchstone for people in Rutherglen. So I was wondering if you had any comments about that, or any reason why that hasn't been included, or if it could maybe be included in terms of consideration going forward.
I certainly don't have any knowledge of whether that's been looked at as part of an earlier SHIP on discounted. There's a kind of legitimate reason it's been discounted, but not certainly, absolutely, we're always looking at sites, and I've taken a note of that one. So we'll start the process of just investigating that, and I can get back to you to let you know what the outcome of our investigations would be.
Brilliant. Okay, and last question as well, very much kind of in the same vein, but it's a site that is currently owned by the council. Mm-hmm. And that's the site where the kind of ill-fated waste facility was going to be a few years ago. So the site it's on Cathcart Road, just between kind of Brownsdale Road and Glencairn Drive. So this is an area, it's got flats on one side, it's got kind of cottage flats or semi-detached houses across the road on the other side, and then a kind of light industrial estate that it kind of backs onto. Now, there was a proposal by Community and Enterprise. They applied for planning permission to put a waste facility on this site, and it was, kind of died a bit of a death. I don't think it even got to committee in the end, in part because there was like a very strong local backlash that this site was going to be used as a waste facility. But part of that backlash was that there's a real shortage of social homes, particularly larger social homes in that area. And this is land that's already owned by the council, mm-hmm. surrounded by houses on several sides. But again, it's kind of notable by omission here. So do you know why that wasn't considered?
No, again, sorry, I don't have any information, but another one I'll take. Yeah,
absolutely. That would be brilliant. It's something I think I raised that, albeit maybe a bit too informally, with Danny Lowe around about the time. That would be a good site to include in the strategic housing investment programme. But yeah, certainly going forward, I think those two sites are kind of notable by their omission. It would be great to see the council kind of explore adding some social homes on those sites, or kind of trying to progress that, because they're both, exactly what it says in the tin here, brownfield sites where we could be putting in some housing and really meeting a social need.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We're always looking for sites. So anything that anybody's aware of, if you can let us know, we'll have a review. We'll have a review of the site. We've obviously got an internal kind of working group with colleagues in estates, planning and property to look at potentials for sites and what we can be built on the sites. Obviously, there's a lot more investigatory work in terms of site investigations and stuff like that need to be done. But we will obviously work closely with our colleagues in the local area office to identify kind of housing mix and need specific sites. And I know you touched on kind of larger properties. So if there is a need for perhaps a specific family with specific needs, or kind of a larger family that maybe in a larger property, we can accommodate that on site. But no, certainly we'll take those two sites back. We'll have a look at them.
Yeah, brilliant. After the planning committee this morning as well. I'm not gonna suggest a site on down Barry Road, down next to the Tesco. But of course, I think that would be a great site for social housing as well. But as long as we don't get a battery facility on it,
we're digressing.
Take that as a compliment.
Thanks, Martin. Thanks, Rosie. Okay, move on to Margaret.
Thanks, Chair. This is really good news story for my area as well. More social rented housing. I just wanted to ask a wee bit about the Fernbury Avenue site. Is it down the bottom towards Burnside Road, or is it up the top near the kind of old golf course clubhouse? And also, just along with Martin, just to have it noted that, we're in desperate need in this ward of larger houses, 3-4 bedroomed houses, if that could be taken note of as well. Thanks. So if I could get a wee bit more information and whereabouts on Fernbury Avenue you're doing the feasibility study. Thanks. Thanks, Carol.
Yeah, no bother. And I think, again, it's probably just better sending on the plan for those areas, rather than kind of to try to describe exactly where they are. Obviously, I'll appreciate it's better to see the kind of outline on plan. So you're happy just for me to do that, Councillor Cowie? I'll just forward it on.
Yeah, that would be great. Sorry about that.
No bother.
Thank you.
Thanks, Margaret. Walter?
Thanks, Chair. Appreciate it. Yeah, again, welcome social housing and especially council housing. But on the other hand, I'd like to understand what the amenities are that are going to come along with these houses. These houses, these units are all very, very close to current primary schools that already have traffic issues there. So I'd like to understand if we're going to get some traffic lights and things and things to actually ease these schools up. Certainly I know St Cadoc's and Cairns, ongoing issues, and there is no real pedestrian safety barriers or anything there. And the same with New Road, that should be boxing in a school there round about the park as well. So I like to understand what support's going to be given to the schools, and especially in terms of traffic around those areas. Thank you.
Tony, you okay to pick up on that?
Tony, you're still on mute.
Sorry. Yeah, I can probably speak to the schools issue and maybe pass over to Colin about the traffic issues. I mean, in general terms, when it comes to dealing with applications for affordable housing, whether that's the council or it's the RSLs, we tend not to take contributions, and often because the viability of these schemes is very marginal. And I'm guessing I'm going to probably pass this back to Rosie in a minute, but I'm guessing that housing will have discussions with education and other service providers to make sure that there's enough capacity in that area. That's probably as much as I can say at the moment, just because of we don't generally tend to seek contributions for public housing.
Yeah, I didn't expect an answer from you anyway, but I know it has to be passed on.
But you feel better for saying it, Walter, yes?
No, I didn't feel better for saying it. I just have to keep saying it because we're not getting very far at this point in time. But thanks for letting me share.
Thanks, Walter. Any further questions for Rosie or Tony? Okay, that's fine. Happy to agree the reports.
Great.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move to item 4 on the agenda. Oh, apologies, Rosie and Tony, if you want to leave, feel free if you have something else on.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks for your time. Bye-bye. Okay, so we'll move to item 4 on the agenda, participatory budgeting, an update from Education Resources, and it's Laura Mitchell.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm delighted to be with you this afternoon to give you a wee update on the Education Resources on our progress around the participatory budgeting around the pupil equity funding. The first part of the report on page 15 is just a wee recap on the participatory budgeting allocation for this. I'm not going to go over that in detail, but I thought it was quite important that we just kind of recapped that so that you had that information there. What has changed since the last time I was here at the area committee was that the schools have undertaken a rigorous consultation process with stakeholders led by a participatory budgeting stakeholder group in each school, and they have concluded that voting process around the participatory budgeting. There are some really good examples of how stakeholders have been engaged in that process by schools. Some schools did a sort of outdoor parent coffee session, for example. There was Google Forms used. Electronic programmes like Jamboard were used to create kind of post-it note boards to get some pupil ideas. And there were lots of other kind of paper-based ways as well as electronic. Schools then engaged stakeholders in the voting process and used both electronic and paper-based voting, as well as a more hands-on options, which were generally used in some of the kind of primary schools where they had sort of wall displays and the pupils actually went up with stickers and stuck a wee sticker on what they wanted the vote to be. There was also some examples of where the participatory budgeting group led by the pupils actually made some videos on the different options for votings, and that was put out to the school community so that they could see what the options were. So Appendix 3, which is on page 19, takes you through a school by school breakdown of the vote. So there is a wee recap on those pages 19 right the way through to bear with me, 21. So it gives you the school, the total participatory budgeting spend, what percentage of their PEF money that was, and the approach that was actually voted on for their stakeholders. Appendix 4, which is on page 22, gives a further breakdown of the vote. So you can see there that for the Cambuslang and Rutherglen area, a total amount of 65% of pupils voted and 61% of staff voted, which is a reasonably high number. There's also a breakdown of what that equates to in terms of the numbers down the bottom. Unfortunately, we couldn't give you a percentage of the number, the percentage of parents that voted. It was quite a difficult task for schools to do because families come in all different shapes and sizes, and it's quite difficult for them to kind of numerically put a number of their families on. But we do know that 1,520 parents voted in total. So as you can see from the kind of round circle diagram on that Appendix 4, the majority of the vote came from pupils, 64%, 27.7% from parents and 8.3% from staff. So you can see here that pupils really have had their voice in this, and that their ideas have really went forward with their ideas, and that they really have had the majority of the vote there. I've also included for you in Appendix 5 the Newton Farm primary breakdown because that was requested at the last area committee. That doesn't fall under Cambuslang and Rutherglen for education, but I know it does fall under the ward, so we've popped that there. So schools are now progressing with their spend to ensure that the minimum of the 5% of the participatory budgeting is spent by the end of the financial year. And the Central Equity team are supporting schools to navigate any challenges that they face so that there is full spend by March 2022. Some schools have communicated that their participatory budgeting stakeholder group are going to continue to lead this for the rest of the academic year. For example, they're going to be involved in the procurement of some of the things, on the marketing of the new resources, and reporting on the impact of that as well. So it's really great to see that we've had pupils really at the heart of this activity, and schools have really enjoyed being part of the process. The equity team are also gathering some specific school examples, which we'll put into case studies and share with you at a future area committee meetings. So I'll now take any questions.
That's great, thanks Laura. Okay, we'll open it up to questions. Such a comprehensive report, Laura, there's no questions.
Stunned you all into silence.
It doesn't happen often, You know, it's like we said at the pre-agenda, I love to see this and to see the level of engagement from pupils. It's what it's all about, it's their schools, and it's great to see them be involved so much. It really is. Yeah, it's right that they have their say, very much so.
the schools have reported as well that, particularly because it was the pupil equity funding, that the pupils have come up with ideas that they maybe really never thought of. For example, the sort of water fountain, and that the cost that actually of buying a bottle of water, about 70 pence every day, and how that contributes to families' costs and things like that. So it has been really eye-opening for schools and for us as the education department to see some of the ideas, and hopefully it'll have good impact.
Do you know, it's great for pupils as well to see the suggestions go forwards and to see things being acted upon and things. So yeah, really welcome the report. So if there's no questions or comments, then I'll be happy to agree the report.
Agree.
Okay, thank you. Thanks very much for coming along, Laura.
Thank you. Am I okay just to head off?
Of course.
Thank you very much.
Care.
Take care, everyone. Have a lovely Christmas. Bye.
Oh, you too. Bye. Okay, and we'll move to item 5 on the agenda and participate. Oh, I've done so well saying it before as well. Participatory budgeting, and it's an update from Housing and Technical Resources, and it's Jonathan Reeds.
Thank you very much, Chair.
Thanks, Jonathan.
I was impressed how many times Laura managed to say it. I was going to shorten it to PB to avoid it.
I should have learned by now, Jonathan. I should have learned.
No, thank you. And in similar fashion to Laura's report, this is as an update for yourselves in relation to the PB activity that's taken place within Rutherglen and Cambuslang in relation to one of our budget areas. A bit of wider context to this one is that we submitted 3 budget areas to Executive Committee as part of the wider PB programme, covering a particular aspect of the housing investment programme, the estate improvement budget, and then the commissioning aspect of the community safety budget as well. So this, in Rutherglen and Cambuslang, we've made progress on the estate improvement budget portion of our wider activity, and this update is to cover where we've got to with that so far. So in terms of the state improvement budget, it's a relatively small budget area. It's £40,000 that's split across each of the divisions in South Lanarkshire, and £10,000 obviously breaking up into each of them. So it's a budget area that we tend to define as something that the local housing offices can use to kind of pick up those projects that might be able to, those little wins for tenants or other customers, ones that can do little things that can make a big difference to how people live, things that might get missed off investment programmes or things that don't get picked up in replacement parts and all those kind of things. So it's very much driven by what our tenants and other customers want to see happen in their local area. And a couple of the examples that I'm about to talk about kind of demonstrate that quite well, I think. So these came about from walkabouts that some of yourselves may well have been on between officers, elected members and customers as well. And you'll see the scale of the projects are relatively small. So we had a couple of issues that were identified through these walkabouts, which required some trees and shrubs to be removed, some tarmac to be resurfaced, and then also a kind of an uplift area for bins to be created, making it easier for customers to place bins out, and also then for waste services to access and pick up the waste as well. So you'll see the total cost of those ones came in at just under £5,000. So we still have £5,000 left of the Rutherglen Cambuslang area budget left to spend, and officers are working their way through that with customers and with many of yourselves perhaps to identify what should be used for that other portion of the budget. We have had feedback in relation to some of these areas from customers saying that that's exactly what they wanted, and now that certainly people see that things get done, obviously you'll know yourselves to come back and ask for, actually, could you do that as well? So these kind of areas will then be looked at with officers and estimated and taken forward as well to see if they are suitable for this particular budget area. That's it really. Quite a short update. If we have any questions on those particular projects or the wider PB programme from the resource, I'm happy to try and answer some of them.
Thanks, Jonathan. Okay, any questions? Okay, not seeing any hands. Well, thank you, Jonathan. Again, as we'd said, it's sometimes the small things that make the biggest difference, isn't it? And I think from constituents' point of view, they're seeing things being, suggestions put forward and it being acted upon, so it does go a long way. So thank you for the update, much appreciated.
No problem. Thank you, Councillor.
Thanks for coming along.
Bye now.
Thank you. Okay, we're happy to agree the report?
Agreed.
Thank you. Okay, and we'll move on to items for decision, and that's item 6 on the agenda. It's an update on residents' parking permit zones, and it's Colin Park.
Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Colin.
Good afternoon, everyone. The purpose of this report is to provide the Area Committee with the results of the completed residents' parking permit zone consultation, which will inform the committee's recommendation to the future Executive Committee. Section 3 of the report sets out the background to RPPZs, and at paragraph 3.5 it notes that at the full council meeting of the 22nd of September this year, a motion relating to parking permit charges was tabled, and it was subsequently agreed that consultation with residents living in the current RPPZ areas would be undertaken. Charging for permits was put on hold pending the outcome of this consultation when reported to the relevant committees, and this report sets out the results of the exercise. Section 4 notes the detail of the consultation and the numbers that were issued to the various areas across South Lanarkshire, and Section 5 and Appendices 1 and 2 provide more detail of the results. Paragraph 5.1 notes that 4,286 households were consulted, and as of the 17th of November, which was a few days after the consultation closed, we'd received 1,365 completed returns, representing a return rate of around about 32%. Paragraph 5.2 notes that rates for consultation of this nature typically run between 5 and 30%, and the overall response rate of 32% achieved here is at the higher end of that scale, which indicates a good connection between the council and the residents and a general interest in the survey content. Overall, 81% of the households chose to pay the £5 per year administration charge, which is in fact £10 over 2 years, and to remain part of their RPPZ. And conversely, 19% wish to have their zone removed. Paragraph 5.6 notes that there's further detail of the split across the 6 geographical areas, and given the scale of the zones in East Kilbride, a further breakdown of the individual zones. For this committee today, it's worthwhile highlighting that Cambuslang had a return rate of 42%, and that's set out at Appendix 1, and in Rutherglen 23%. Moving on to what the actual returns were for Cambuslang, it was 97% wanted to pay and keep being part of the zone, and for Rutherglen it was 90%. Turning to the recommendation, the committee is asked to note the kind of information I've provided today, discuss the contents of this report, and provide a recommendation for consideration by a future Executive Committee. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Colin. Okay, we'll open up to questions. Everyone is very quiet today. Is that because of planning this morning?
I'm just disappointed. I managed to pull together some nice bar charts to make it look good, so at least give me a question.
Do you know what? It's impressive. It is, Colin.
I knew Councillor Lennon was thinking about a question there. I just saw him hesitate.
Go, Martin, go.
Not a substantive question at all. It's actually about the charts. I think it's incredible that 100% of people in Uddingston voted to keep the pay zone. So I think that's, just remarkable. You don't often get unanimity in anything. So I think that's notable. Also, just because you mentioned the bar charts, I think it's ambitious that you put the top of the bar chart 120%. If 120% of people in Uddingston had voted to keep the chart, I would then have had follow-up questions.
I think all I would say is very, very well made points. Uddingston's obviously a very, very low number with only 18 properties there, so they've obviously got a strength of feeling. And again, I think it probably just highlights on a much kind of smaller level that some other communities do recognise the benefits of being part of a zone, and obviously in a small community, in a small maybe kind of town centre location, they've obviously came to a view, as have obviously another 81% of people who are covered by RPPZs. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Colin. I think, it's a detailed report and further information had been asked for, so it's very welcome to have the information. Are we happy to agree the contents of the report?
Agree.
Okay, thank you.
Chair, sorry for coming in there. Can I just to be clear, can I just take from agreeing of the report that the Area Committee are comfortable that we report a recommendation to the Executive Committee to accept the results of the survey, yeah?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Thanks, Colin. Thank you. Okay. If there's no further questions, then feel free, Colin, you can crack on with your day.
Thank you very much. Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye. Okay, we'll move to item 7, the community grants. And Margaret, I'll take the first two and then feel free to leave, okay? So the first two applications, Clyde Cycle Park is £1,000 and Burnside and Bloom £600. Do we have any questions or comments on the grants? Okay, I'll move them then. Happy to approve.
Second.
Thank you. Margaret, did you want in?
Hi, Carol. It was just to say, looking at the end, the amount of money we've got left, and we've only spent 4,736, and we're only awarding a set amount. I would just want to question that. How does that all come about? Because we've got £34,844 left, and I think we've got one remaining meeting.
Yeah, I mean, of course, anything that comes in will be considered. That's part of the paper up until the 31st of March. I appreciate the point that you've made. There is a lot of funds left, but there has to be, in my opinion, an element of consistency. And so, Burnside and Bloom, other organisations have come in for similar projects. So, I think from my point of view, we need to have some consistency. I don't know if you have anything else to add to that, Pauline. That's just my thoughts, Margaret.
Thanks, Chair, for that. Yes, you're quite correct. We have had other groups in, and generally what we try to do is, unless there's exceptional circumstances, award in the region of 60% of the amount asked for, on the basis that the groups themselves will make some kind of contribution to the project that they want to do. And it's for that reason that we don't normally award the full amount. So I don't know if that's helpful, but that's a kind of rationale behind the award.
I just find it a wee bit bizarre that we've got about 90% of the budget unallocated at the end of the year. So am I understanding this correctly? Is it £41,000 for community grants just for this financial year, and that we've only allocated, under maybe it's a bit more than 10%, but it seems incredible that we've got a budget for £41,000 to give out in community grants, and we've got one meeting remaining, and we're looking at the best part of 35 grand in the bank. It just seems, I can certainly think of community groups that could do with a wee bit of funding that we could be providing, and it seems bizarre to have such a large chunk of it unallocated. Is it a failure of advertising? Are we not? Do community groups just not know that this money's there, or are they all just so well funded that they don't want it?
I think I'll come in, Martin, and then Pauline might want to add. I think, as we all know, it's exceptional times that we're in just now, and many of the groups that would come in for funding are not meeting, they're not taking place. So it's really not a like for like, because generally speaking, we are usually there or thereabouts with the awards that we made. And obviously there was funds carried forward from last year. So it would be great, we want to make as many awards as possible, but there's just simply the circumstances, the groups aren't meeting, there's not as much coming through. Martin? Pauline, anything further?
Will this money then be carried forward into next year's budget then?
It's still under consideration, I believe, Pauline. Yes, it's still to be.
We don't have any confirmation, Chair, one way or the other, whether this, under normal circumstances, the monies would not be carried forward. Clearly, there was a change last year in that we were able to carry that money forward, but this year I've got no instructions that will be carried forward.
Thanks, Pauline. Robert?
Yes, I was going to ask on the same thing. As a leader, I'm on the budget review group that looks at this sort of thing. And last year we were keen, in fact, I think I pushed for it myself, that this should be carried forward. And I would certainly take the view that should be the position again, because it does against the background of the COVID thing. The only other thing I'd say, apart from the carry forward thing, is whether we can, in the context of what we've got just now, maybe just push round a re-advertisement of the availability of grant funding to the usual contacts. I took the opportunity on the Spring Hall meeting I was on earlier on to make that point to them there, if there are groups with the ability to operate. Now, we can't, if you like, require them to make applications, but if there are groups like that that could benefit from the funding, as Martin touches on, well, to be quite honest, let's get them pushed in to make grant applications and see what happens if they're suitable or not. They might not all qualify, but they certainly should be encouraged to have a look at it and see. Thanks.
Do you know, I agree with that, Robert, and I've made the request to Tom Little to publicise as much as we possibly can, and there has been more on social media. So yes, by all means, if we can have any more applications, we are more than happy to consider them. Walter?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I think you said it yourself. It's a difficult one, and these are exceptional times. And call me a big sap, whatever you want to call me, but it's getting close to Christmas. We're not going to spend the money. I'd rather see some of it spent now, and I think we have the power as a group to make that happen. So I would recommend that we actually award more to some of these than we've been doing. 60% might have been okay in the past. It's not enough now. And I've certainly argued for years that the amounts we award are too small anyway. We should be going for bigger ones. But in this kind of circumstance, coming up to Christmas and just after Christmas, these groups are going to need money. They've done a fantastic job keeping themselves together, actually providing a good service for us. I would give them as much money as we possibly can.
Thanks, Walter. John?
I just agree with what Robert said about carrying the money forward to next year, and that can be argued out at the leaders' meeting as it was last year, and I'm sure it would be sympathetically received by your colleagues, Robert. So I don't think any of us would object to that. But sort of fudging the amounts that are given based not just because it's Christmas, Walter, I'm not too sure of setting a precedent for other groups then coming in and finding themselves overspent as a consequence of that in the early stages of next year. So I don't know whether that's a good idea or not.
Thanks, John. Katie?
Thanks, Carol. Sorry, I've got a sore throat. To make a point, largely along the same lines as John there, I'm slightly concerned if we make any changes just now, we're going to find a sort of big rush later in the year. We do have to the end of March. Obviously, things are not looking particularly brilliant at the moment, but we might get a sort of rush of applications coming in because people will realise that they are able to do a bit more. You know, so for when we've got things down, the usual sort of things that we might come to is to fund like outings and so on. People might not be putting those in just now, or might just be kind of sitting back to wait and see what happens. So I'm uncomfortable with the idea of changing what we do at the moment in case it means we find ourselves in the opposite position. And also to absolutely agree with what John and Robert said about pushing for this to be carried forward. I think it really has been another deeply strange year in so many ways that we really need to have the ability to do that. Thanks.
I think that would be the opinion of all the area committees, wouldn't it? I'm sure everybody wants.
I don't think there's any precedent's been set here at all. I believe other committees have gone over and above the amounts that were already suggested. Also, you know, some of these groups are not going to be around unless we support them. And my bigger worry is that we lose groups rather than overspend. But, you know, that's up to the committee.
Thanks, Walter. Margaret?
Yeah, just want to agree. I think it should be looked at that the money is allowed to be carried forward. It's an awful lot of money, and I would encourage community groups to apply. But I think as well we should be looking at the precedent we are setting, like to do with the amounts. If we have like a large amount, like I know for a start-up grant it's £250. That's the sort of thing that I'm talking about, that maybe that should be relooked at in the future. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Margaret. Thank you. Okay, so on that basis then, are we happy to approve the grants for Clyde Cycle Park, Burnside and Bloom, and...
Chair, can we just hold on with
Sure.
Fernhill at the moment till Councillor Cowie actually comes?
Oh, sorry, I wasn't going to mention Fernhill. Did I say
Okay,
that there? I didn't mean to.
My apologies.
Sorry, I was just going to say and request authorisation for any further applications that come in between now and the end of March. I'd be happy to agree that.
Agreed.
Thank you. Okay, Margaret, if you want to leave, that would be great.
Right, thanks everybody. Have a
Thanks,
good
Margaret.
Christmas
Take
and New
care.
Year. Take
You
care.
too.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, and then the last application then is Fernhill Kids Play Scheme, and the amount awarded is £250. Are we happy to approve that? Walter?
Yeah, I still think you should give them a bit more, but I'll let the rest of you decide on that one.
Okay, thanks, Walter.
So I think in principle it might be a nice idea to like increase the amount we give to groups, but I don't think doing it midstream when I think if I was a community group that had applied a couple of months ago, and I think it would feel a wee bit arbitrary. But we've got a new member of the committee, so maybe we can see what they think.
That's what I was laughing at, because everyone was a little bit distracted there. So can we say hello? Hello.
Hello. What do you think?
This, Robert?
Do you think we should give them an extra £250?
Yes, we should.
I think, Walter, I totally appreciate your point. I think probably where I'm coming from, I probably agree with Martin that I think it's a timing thing here. And I think we would be favouring a group over someone else who came in because we have a standard fee for outings and agencies, and it's £250. So that's probably where I am.
The last thing I was going to suggest though is if there is like a rump amount at the end of the year and we're not able to carry it forward, it might be an option to then say, right, well, retrospectively then, we are given the an extra 5% to all the groups that we only funded towards 60%. Maybe that would be a more elegant way to sort it out. But yeah, certainly I think kind of saying no from December to March, you get 100% funded, whereas like from March to December you only get 60%. I think that's obviously not particularly fair.
Thanks, Martin. Walter?
Yeah, I'm just trying to encourage us to think out the box here. Yeah, we haven't spent much. We probably could retrospectively give 100% awards to the ones who'd asked for it and still not make a dent in that money. So maybe we should just go and take a look at it before we make a final decision.
I think we're kind of in a limbo period just now, and I think we've made our feelings quite known that we would like the money to be carried forward. And I think it's a case of going back to the leaders' meeting, and we make that request and we see what the feedback is. Does anyone have anything else to add, or are we happy to move forwards?
I suspect it will be carried forward, Chair. I don't think there'll be too much issue about that. It's a small amount of money in the overall scheme of things, so I think we'll be fine on that one. But we need to wait and see, obviously.
Do you know what I mean? It's it would be good. It would be good if it would move forward and that we can promote things as much as we can, because we want local groups to benefit. So we can all play our part in that. So on that basis, then I will move the award at £250 if we're in agreements.
Agreed.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for your contribution and discussion, and it's been lovely working with you over the past year. So I get to say Merry Christmas now.
Oh, Merry Christmas to you too.
Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Cheerio.
Robert, is that your granddaughter then? Yes.
Grandson, actually. This is Finn.
Sorry.
He's got long hair. That's the only thing.
I love that.
This is Finn.
What's his name?
Finn.
Finn.
Finn. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Are you looking forward to Santa coming, Finn?
Yeah.
Are we excited?
He's because of COVID issues at the moment.
And is this Finn's first committee meeting?
It is, yes. Uh-huh.
Oh, well. Well, you're very well.
It's been standing as a Lib Dem candidate.